Welcome to the last session of the CELT conference for 2012. And this session surely will not disappoint. This is a experiential group of folks who are going to share their experiences with Academy e-learning from Cohort 3, which is a year ago. And what they're going to do is let us know how it's going and tell us a little bit about what that experience has been like with Academy e-learning. And we're going to let them be fairly informal in how this will start off. We're going to begin with Suzanne Miller. Then we're going to move over here to Mollie Aschenbrener. And then these guys are going to draw straws. No, they said thumb wrestle for who's going to go next. And we will introduce each as they move ahead. But thanks for being here, and I hope you enjoy this afternoon.
Thank you very much, Laura. I am Suzanne Miller of Communication Arts and Sciences, and I am here to talk to you about the redesign of the American Sign Language course, CMSD 156. And we had contributors to this redesign, and I just want to point out Cassie Ragsdale right now is teaching the course with great success, and I'm very proud of her bravery, which as I go through and explain the class, you'll understand why. Adele Harth joined us too for the redesign. She's a sign language interpreter from ARC, and of course the Academy e-learning staff, who were very helpful in this redesign. We decided that we needed to do something with American Sign Language because it was coming into the GE system starting this fall. And typically the course was offered to about 25 students each semester. And we knew we'd have to offer the course to more students if it was going to be part of GE. But we weren't quite sure how we were going to do that given the fact it's a visual language learning class. So a lot of interesting restrictions to that class. So we thought Academy e-learning's all about technology. So somehow technology has to help us access more students, provide more in-class time to actually practice American Sign Language, and be able to have us more effectively and efficiently assess student learning and their perceptions of their learning. And also somehow technology had to be able to reduce student costs. We didn't know how we were going to do any of this when we started out with our proposal. We just knew that those were our goals. So when we got into the Academy e-learning program, we learned that Academy e-learning is not just about using technology in the classroom. And it really was an excellent 3-week intensive experience to discuss teaching and learning. We got to be creative. We got to think about teaching and learning in a different way other than your traditional lecture, discussion groups, and activities. We learned from small groups because we all come in as our own group working on our own course to redesign, and that's wonderful. But we also learned from the larger group because we all reported out on our progress and the ideas that we had, and so we got to share quite a bit, and that was an excellent learning experience. The other point that I thought was fantastic was an uninterrupted amount of time to work on a course. And how often do we teach and say, oh, I know I can make this class better, I just don't have the time to put into it, to do it. This gives you that time. We learned a lot from this 3-week experience, and there were all kinds of resources to pull from. We took these particular ones and put them into our American Sign Language redesign. I'm not going to go through all of these, but I would like to mention the top few. We found a video dictionary, an online free dictionary for the students. So that took away from them the cost of purchasing a paper dictionary that ran about $35, $45. So that was a savings for the students and an excellent resource. The lectures were embedded into the course, as a traditional course is, and we decided to get more practice into the day-to-day sessions. We'd remove the lectures, and we'd remove the quizzes, and we'd put them online in a format that students can access through Blackboard. And what we found, it worked very well. The instructor did the Camtasia video capture of these lectures. They're about 15 minutes apiece. The students go in, there's questions about the lectures. When they're done, to check how well they understood it, they can watch it multiple times. It worked out really well. The quizzes, that was an extra special savings because some of those quizzes, when I taught the course, were 45 minutes to an hour long, even with 25 or 30 students in the class, because everybody writes, but then you can't keep signing. You got to stop and wait, and then everybody looks up, and then you can start again. It's a very long process. So this way, doing those receptive language acquisition quizzes online has really been very helpful and given a lot more time for practice. This is what our Blackboard Learn page looks like for the course. She might have redone it a little bit, but you can see there's the online lectures. They just click on that, see which lecture they're supposed to be doing, and take the quiz from that lecture, and all the chapters and the information is set up that way. This is just a screenshot of the online dictionary where the students can type in a word or a phrase and have it signed. They can slow it down, they can repeat it, they can quicken the pace. It's really a nice way to look up your signs, and it's free. So I want to let you know where we're at now with this, because it's been now about a year. We implemented most of what I had mentioned last fall. We had a fall enrollment of 40, and this is when I said Cassie was a very brave soul. She just bumped it up to 40 students and said it's going very, very well. So I think that it really shows that not just technology, but technology and very careful thinking and planning, you can really create a successful learning experience for more students. The student instructor feedback shows greater depth of the language learning, primarily because there's more in-class opportunities to practice, more feedback. The students really like the multimedia presentation aspect of it, and the instructor feels the technology was very easily adaptable to student needs. So when the class wasn't moving quite as quickly, or if she needed to add in more material, that was very doable. So our plans now are to enhance more out-of-class experiences to get them more exposure to deaf culture. And some advice I have for you. If you're out there thinking about Academy e-learning, I say participate in Academy e-learning. And I'm not paid to do this announcement. The information that you learn enhances all teaching styles, all teaching philosophies. It is applicable to all different kinds of courses, course content, discipline areas. The support that you receive after this experience is fantastic. So you don't just learn and then leave and you'd struggle for the rest of the time trying to put it all together. You really have probably years of support as you go through TLP. And I do believe the overall experience, at least for us, it really challenged our ideas on what teaching and learning excellence is really all about. And so that is my story, and I want to thank TLP for all that you do. So I will pass it off. I do need to leave to go conduct a meeting, so let's pass it on.
Good morning, or good afternoon. It's been a long day. I don't really know. My name is Mollie Aschenbrener. I teach in the College of Agriculture, and I'm not really sure I need this microphone, but if you want me to have it, I will. Okay. I actually am involved primarily with teacher education, and just this last year I've really transitioned to be more online. Specifically, we launched a brand new online master's program. So I will speak a little bit about the course that I worked with the redesign, and kind of tell you some of the impact of that course design. And then I will tell you my top 6 e-learning lessons. Why 6? Because that's what I chose. So in converting my, working with the course, I taught this course as a lecture-only course, and I worked with Dr. Cindy Daly and Dr. Betsy Boyd, and we moved it to more of a hybrid model. I actually have not taught in that kind of method since it's been done, but I can tell you that some of the things that we have are some mixed reviews, and that's just being very honest. One is the technology and being adaptable for the students. Because they have a hybrid course, sometimes they forget to come to class because they only have it one day a week. We have some challenges that we still have to work out, but primarily it's being, I think, training students to be more comfortable in now a brand new learning management system. We did, really one of our objectives was to determine if it could be more efficient use of resources, and we can say that it would, we really feel confident saying that it's more efficient with the use of rooms, physical space. We're able to offer 2 sections on a Tuesday, Thursday. The other day they meet online, so you can see how that does free some space. For us, that's a major constraint within our own college to have the classroom space for a GE class that serves, a 70 or 75 at a time. So that was a significant thing for us, but in general, I'll let Dr. Daly speak more to those. What I really like to focus on is really kind of some of the things that transitioned from e-learning and how it impacted what I do now. And the first one that my kind of lessons is that transformation or development takes time. And no matter how much time you think it's going to take, it's probably going to take more. And I think that's fair to say in almost any discipline, just that, but the opportunity to stop and really think about what we do in a classroom is very powerful. And I cannot think that it will not improve any classroom, just to have some time to focus on making changes and improvement. Lesson number 5, knowledge of technology is one thing, implementation is another. And that goes for both the instructor as well as students. Most of my students have a degree. They're actively teaching right now, but they did not participate when Blackboard was a learning management system. So consequently, they have the same learning curve that we have as instructors. So it's been a bit of a challenge for them to understand. And I'll note another comment on that in just a moment. My 4th lesson is be patient. It may not be perfect the first time. That's hard for those of us that are very type A and really like things to be perfect. But in the development of having some glitches, it usually ends up being a stronger program or lesson or whatever it is in the long run. So I've learned to be a little bit more patient with myself. The third one that I am trying to really struggle with as an online instructor and looking at what we've done through e-learning, and that is they really desire the interaction with the instructor. My folks are all professionals, so they're not as demanding, I'll use that word, as wanting the interaction between each other because they all have their own schedules. So it's very challenging for them to coordinate in a group event of some type. We did some things. We used Google Docs. We implemented quite a bit of technology, and all of it was a result of e-learning. What I've learned is that they desire that interaction, but they also want to interact with us as the instructors. One way that I use that, and I've spoke about this before, but I use the video report, and I use that specifically for them to do introductions. And I've shared this in the 4th e-learning academy group, but I will say it again, the quantity and quality of information I receive from having a 2 to 3 minute video could not compare to what I had them write on a paper. So the depth of their questions, and all of a sudden it transformed into where they were with their content, and it was really valuable. So with Anne's help, I designed a little introductory video. It happened to be right after my baby's little guy was born, and so they got to meet him, and a chance for them to really kind of interact with me personally. And I do know a lot of them, but it's still something that I strive to increase, I think, that interaction. This is a new one that Anne and I have talked about more than once, as she's helped me with this. I'm fortunate we had a grant to help do this course development. We are just starting our third course development in 3 semesters. So back to that time thing, yes, it does take quite a bit of time. But what I've really found is that things are not necessarily intuitive. When it's so different from being able to explain something in class, and then of course online you can't, but also when you integrate technology, something like a wiki, okay, that's different. If you throw too many tools at them at one time, they'll probably feel like we felt in eLearning Academy, where they're great tools, but maybe space them out. And so we're also keeping track of kind of how comfortable they are with technology, and I think we're watching that improve from one course to the next. And we're trying not to give them too many different technologies at one time. But slowly at the same time, for me, I'm pushing their curve on what they're used to doing with technology. I know they're going to do that in the classroom where they're teaching. So that's kind of exciting for me to be a part of. And no, this actually is not one that was solicited, but I want to tell you that none of this is possible without the support of TLP and the folks, and I really do sincerely appreciate the time and energy. I've worked with almost all of these folks, and I can tell you the time and energy they've invested, it just simply would not have worked for me in developing these courses without their amazing help, Miss Anne, and the crew, everyone. So I will field any questions if you have before I pass it off, because I am going to put on my other hat and move a stroller around. So if there are some questions if you have any, then otherwise I will go ahead and pass it on. Then thank you very much.
Go down the road. Yeah, that's true. They said you want to go to
Mollie, is this your water? No, ma'am.
Slideshow.
If you go down on the bottom, see my kind is on the mat.
That? Thank you. Hi, I had to get my slide up so I could remember my name. I'm Theresa Cottner, and my colleague Kijong Jian and I were in Academy eLearning Cohort 3 in summer 11, and our intention was to redesign Arts 122, which is 2D design, which, as I like to say, is a class that we haven't changed pedagogically for 100 years. So, this was a big leap into the present. Some of you may know that in Academy eLearning we report out at the end of each week, and Kijong and I chose to do puppet shows instead of videotaping ourselves, and that way Kijong got to be a blonde and I got to look really smart in thick glasses. So that was our little contribution to the entertainment value of it all. We chose the supplemental model for our redesign, and we had 4 main goals. One was to increase content continuity across all the sections of this class. We teach several per semester. We also wanted to increase the use of computer technology. We wanted to increase the quality of student learning, and we wanted to increase student and instructor ability to work outside of the classroom more, leaving classroom time for actual studio production. So as soon as we were accepted into the academy, before we got started, we decided to do a survey, so we'd have a kind of a before, during, and once we had launched and completed a semester with our redesign. And Eddie Vela helped us develop our survey questions, so we knew they were good. And these are the questions. As I said, Eddie helped us develop them, and then we did do it, before we even changed the classes at all. We surveyed students again when we were sort of starting to transition and get instructors to learn some more. We had done a required laptop computer buy in the department, and then the third set of survey questions, we had actually launched our website, which I'll talk about in the end of my talk, and so we had the 3 sets of data. Basically what we found in terms of one, increased continuity across the sections, the students did see an increase in use of Blackboard, so we assume that since they were all using one site, that they were exposed to a more same set of content. The students indicated that they did understand information from the Blackboard site, and that was a good source of learning for them. But neither students nor instructors surveyed really had a sense of what people were doing in other classes. We had hoped that the common site that we had developed, which I'll show you a little bit about in a minute, would get them kind of more into each other's classrooms. It didn't work in that way so much. In terms, and this is just the student response to the data, slight increases, in how they felt that content across the sections went. Our second goal, to increase use of computer technology, we did see a steady increase from semester to semester. Of course, that's in part due to the required buy, but then there is a big jump in use of computers among the students across the 3 semesters. Among the faculty, not really so much, and there is kind of a bit of a dip in like the height, like a 3.8 out of a 4, which would be the highest response. The instructors went down to 3.4, that they were maybe using the computers a little bit less than their students, like after the site was up and they were a little bit removed from it. So that would, a downside, something that we would definitely want to work on. Our third goal, to increase the quality of student learning, and we were looking for like affective responses. Did they appear to be more into it? We saw some mixed results. The students didn't find using digital technology reduced the amount of time that they spent on work overall, and the instructors actually felt that using technology took them more time, because of course they're really learning a lot where students are bringing skills that they already have in. I thought that was one of the more compelling findings in that area. But the students did show like an increase in finding that digital technology facilitated their work. And then our fourth goal, to increase like students' ability and instructors' ability to work outside of the classroom using the laptops. The student data was about the same, although we knew that students were already using laptop computers a lot beforehand. And what was noted in some follow-up survey data with instructors is that some of them didn't have laptop computers or didn't have access to them all the time. So that was kind of a mixed result. We did ask some instructors and students to speak about their experience using the Blackboard site. And basically what we did for our supplemental redesign was that we created a Blackboard site, or BB Learn site. It was a Vista site originally, where all the sections had access to one community site. And on that site, we were able to upload chapters from their textbook. We were also able to upload learning modules that both came with through an electronic version of the textbook, and also that we got from Merlot. And we're also able to show examples of projects that came both from Merlot, other sources on the internet, and an electronic textbook version. So if I have a second, let's see if I can get a few quick testimonials.
Okay, so the Vista website has helped me by consolidating information for the students to be able to access, and by giving them an opportunity to spend their money on materials rather than on a textbook, so that they can access all the readings on the textbook. I've also posted a few things on the group website, on the group 122 Vista page, so that my students can access those, and allowing, I guess, other classes, other sections of the same class to check out what we're doing as well.
And this is rocket science for the art department. We're a little old-fashioned in some ways. Go ahead.
So as far as the Society being set up, I thought it was great in the way that it was kind of like, so we have the two sort of tabs, I guess you could open. We had one for Jerome's class, and then we had another one where it was a little more cumulative of the other art classes that were kind of focusing on the same things. And it just provided like a sort of compilation of resources as far as the book chapters go that were online. So it was really helpful in that we didn't actually have to buy the book because we buy a lot of our supplies in these classes, so it helps save a little bit of money like that. The only real thing I guess I could add to it would maybe be just making the students more knowledgeable of where to find things specifically on the Vista website, because I know a couple times, once or twice with me, but also a lot with other students, they
would have trouble figuring out where to find something. And I think that's a common problem we experience as instructors. We sometimes think the students know way more than they know and are way more savvy than they are, and they're not all, so.
So we would have PowerPoint presentations in class, and those would be available on Vista. And along with all of the syllabus, the schedule, all of the chapters, the whole textbook was on Vista. I didn't even have to buy a textbook, which was really great because textbooks can get really expensive, especially when you've got a full schedule. So it was just really, really easy with Vista to be able to organize all of my stuff. It was all there. Everything I needed, I could just log in from any computer and pull it up and have access to everything I needed for class.
So we're getting there. We thought we did a post survey of the instructors afterwards to try to kind of get down to more specifics on how our community site could better enable them to use technology and to get their students to also successfully use technology. And we didn't all plan this, but TLP is great, and we all really appreciated it. It was an endless summer for me. It didn't seem like just 3 weeks. I think I was at least one of the slowest people in the room, but they couldn't slow everything down for me because there were some really smart people in there too. We all really learned a lot, and I'm really glad the program's continuing to grow and keep going. That's it.
Hi, I'm Hope Monroe Smith from the Department of Music and Theater, which is what we're called now. We were not one department when I started this collaboration with my colleague Dan Schindler. And there's a little bit unusual because we were actually redesigning two courses, one of which already existed, Introduction to the World of Music, and a course that Dan was designing called World Theater. So our group was different than the other ones, even though we were both working in the arts. And our original goal was to have both courses be hybrid courses, but I felt a little uncomfortable doing a hybrid course because in my course, there's a lot of time spent in acquainting students with basic terminology about music, whereas in Dan's course, he doesn't necessarily have to do that. So we ended up doing slightly different things, but we had some common goals, some of which were in student engagement and using various tools within the learning management system to increase student engagement. And so what ended up happening in spring of 2012 is that Dan started teaching his course, and I changed my course in various ways. So Dan has taught the course as a hybrid course. Class meets once a week, and then the other day they do various activities using the learning management system, including reading content and looking at performances that he's put up for them to access and to comment upon. And my class meets twice a week in the normal lecture format. But what I've implemented on Blackboard is various activities, and also I've always used whatever learning management system we have to put put up lecture notes, to communicate with students, to put up assignments, use Turnitin for them to turn in their assignments as opposed to having hard copies of papers, all of which has worked very well for me for several years, and this wasn't a new thing for my redesign, but there are some new tools in Blackboard. I also, when I redesigned the course, I was not in the pilot group for Blackboard, but one of the second wave of people using Blackboard. So I used the journaling tool, and in another course I used the blog tool to try and get students to contribute to classroom discussions. Music 290 is a class with 150 people in it, so it's really difficult for students, unless they're very outgoing, to raise their hand and contribute. But the journaling tool, especially since it's private, they're the only ones seeing, I'm the only one, and they're the only ones seeing what's contributed, that really seemed to bump up students' ability to contribute to what we were discussing in class. Also, it seemed to increase their understanding of class topics. So I could see in their journal entries that they were, okay, they're getting the idea of what I'm communicating in class. And in certain cases, they're bringing things from their own experience, depending on what prompt I gave them in the journal, to put in there. And also, test scores seem to be going up a little bit, not dramatically, but usually the test average is somewhere around 80%, so I don't think I can really get the average much higher than that in an introductory course. I really like the journaling tool. I implemented it about halfway through the semester in the spring, and so that wasn't the optimal time to do it. This semester I have started it from the beginning of the class, tried to get students to understand what the journaling tool is and what things I'm expecting. I grade it on a credit, no credit basis, and mainly use it to see if they're understanding what I'm talking about, but also to generate some class discussion through that tool. Also, the other thing that Dan and I are doing is we have a shared Facebook page that students can like and contribute to. That is done exclusively for extra credit. I'm not sure if it's really working because the students think, oh, I just like the page and I get extra credit. It's like, no, you also have to contribute to the Facebook page. And then I get questions like, do I have to belong to Facebook to contribute to the Facebook page? Well, yes, you do. And so I don't like how that works as much as the blogging tool in Blackboard Learn, which I'm not using currently in this class. I'm using it in some of my other classes, and I like the way that works, but again, you kind of got to force students to do their blog entries and to comment on them, so it's a continuing process to get the students to engage with the it's not just a technology thing. I think it's just they're so busy they don't remember to do it, and you just kind of keep nudging them. Yay, your journal entries due or your blog entries due. This is 10% of your grade if you don't do it. The idea is we're doing it all along and not all at the end, so we can get the benefit from it. But it's coming along. It's working. And now, as far as Dan's experience. Since he's not here and he didn't have time to give me a report on what his experience has been this semester, I'm not sure how things are working for him, except because we share the Facebook page, I can see his students posting and my students posting. But I know that last semester he taught a very small group of students, I think somewhere around 20 students, and this semester his class is about twice that. So he's probably got some interesting things to report later on, I think. But I would agree with Teresa and the other colleagues who've presented today that TLP has been wonderful in helping out with different solutions and making time available for things that I couldn't understand. Like Anne was very helpful with the grade book, and Peter was very helpful with various other things that I needed to little hand holding on. So I would give another rave review to TLP for all the help they did with this project. So if you're interested in Academy e-learning, I definitely give it a big thumbs up, and I'm sure Dan Schindler would as well. So thank you, TLP, and thank you, CELT, for all your help with this. You're welcome.
Thanks. Is this on? Doesn't seem very.
I think it's for the camera. For the camera.
Oh, it's for you. Got it. All right, I'm just going to pull my course up and learn, so let me do that. All right. So I am going to show you something on here in a minute, but I thought I'd just put my landing page up there. So I'm Sarah Pike. I'm from the Department of Comparative Religion and Humanities. And I want to echo what everyone else has said. And if you are thinking about doing Academy e-learning, it's a wonderful experience. I really learned a lot, not all of which I've incorporated into my classes or my teaching, but certainly some of it has been really beneficial. And we had a good time. I think the puppet shows and the friendly TLP staff and everyone who came, it was fun. So I was kind of dreading it, and I thought it would be really boring. It wasn't boring. So I hope you'll take the opportunity to do the next one or one in the future. So I had a couple of vague goals when I went to Academy e-learning. One of them was to reduce my workload, which seems to increase every year, and to have more time for research and writing. So I am teaching increasing numbers of students in big GE classes, which is a lot of what my department does. And I really wasn't willing to compromise my teaching to reduce my workload. So I thought, well, how can I find some ways to really get students engaged, to have a little less time in class, and still feel like I'm doing a good job? So that was kind of a vague goal. I also was interested in collaborating with other faculty, as I think it's something that we don't often have time to do on campus. So whoever it was that said we often don't have time to work on our courses, that's true. We also don't have a lot of time to talk with our colleagues. And that was one of the big benefits of Academy e-learning. So let me say a little bit about this course. It's Religious Studies 332 World Religions and Global Issues. It's a big GE, upper division GE class. Most of the students in this class don't know much about religion. Many of them have never taken another religious studies class, and they're from all over campus, mostly seniors and juniors from all different disciplines. So it's a class that really has to cover a lot of material and yet also accommodate students coming with very different kinds of backgrounds. So my course redesign team included myself, Daniel Weidlinger, and Tom Parker, also from the Department of Comparative Religion and Humanities. And one of our goals as we started talking about it was to really find ways for a class, say, of 120, for students to work together on projects and to have more interaction with each other. Since often in a class that size, you end up doing quite a bit of lecture, or even if you're not lecturing, you're doing some give and take with the 3 students that sit in the front row, and the other students aren't really engaging with the material and talking with each other that much. So we do some small group work in class, but we wanted to find some ways to use Learn, and we did launch this course on Learn, which was a big challenge because we had neither of us used Learn before, so we're doing the new course, redesigned course, and learning the learning management system at the same time. So that was challenging. So I want to focus on 2 things. We actually have a lot of material online that we did with the class, but there are 2 areas in which I really think we were able to increase student engagement. I got good feedback. I just looked at my SETs. Most of the complaints had to do with technology problems and frustrations with the technology, sometimes because I hadn't turned something on that I was supposed to turn on, not because the Learn wasn't working. But the students really seemed to enjoy the 2 aspects of the class that we changed. But before I say that, I just wanted to, so I want to talk about how we did, show you how we did in really increase student engagement and collaborative work. But I just want to mention two small things that sort of came out of Academy e-learning. They were unintentional. I mean, they weren't things that I anticipated learning when I went in. I hadn't really thought about reducing textbook costs. The books for my class weren't that expensive. At least I didn't think they were. But when we started talking about it in Academy e-learning, Daniel and I decided to look and see what was available online, and we found some really great resources. So now for this class, most of their reading is online, including a BBC website on world religions where they can see films and look at images, see rituals, I mean, all kinds of things, as well as read a lot of text. So we now have one textbook that costs about $15. So I think we really helped to reduce student costs, even though those weren't significant. The second sort of unanticipated experience that I had in Academy e-learning was just the collaborative work that I did with my team and with my colleagues, my cohort. Again, I think we don't have an opportunity to do that very often. And because of that, Daniel and I decided we wanted to try to team teach this class. And we have not been able to do that yet. I think it's really frustrating here in this university that we're not encouraged to do more team teaching. It's very frustrating when you're trying to convince administrators that can't figure out where to put the FTE. So that's been what? So it's been a year we've been trying to team teach, and we're going to this spring. So we're looking forward to seeing how that goes. Meanwhile, we did collaborate together in redesigning the course. We wrote our tests together. We were teaching side by side, so we were each teaching a section of the class. So we wrote our tests. We talked about what was going well, what wasn't going well. So it was still a collaborative experience. We just weren't in the classroom together. All right, so let me talk about the two ways that I think we have been pretty successful in really engaging, helping students engage with each other. The first one, well, I'm not going to show you. It's just the discussions, and I'm sure a lot of you have probably used discussions. But I find in this course we deal with a lot of controversial issues. So we do war and peace in the Middle East. We're looking at environmental issues and the role of religion and dealing with environmental issues. Last semester when we taught it, we did a whole section on self-immolation. So we're really talking about things that are challenging for the students. And I found that the discussion was great. And maybe it's because they're more advanced students, but they would write very thoughtful paragraphs. And I was really impressed with their writing. I mean, these are students from business, construction management. They're not all humanities. They're not all English majors. And they're really doing great writing. So I thought the discussion went really well. We had guided prompts. We gave them points, so it was fairly structured in some sense. But there was still a lot of interaction. I gave them extra points for replying to each other's posts. So I found ways to encourage them to interact. So those discussions were great. The second area that the second area of the class that let me see, it's going to take me, I can't talk and find it. Where is it? Website project. So Daniel and I each had a different kind of group project that we did with the class. And when we collaborated and talked about this during Academy e-learning, we kind of took the best of both of what we were doing. So we placed the students in groups, or well, we didn't place them in groups. We came up with the topics. We had a list of topics, and they could sign up for the topic that they were interested in. And then they had to work together to design a website. We didn't help them much at all. We said, you're on your own to figure this out. If you really get stuck, come to our office hours. I don't think anyone did. I think they all figured it out. They usually had at least one person in their group who was a tech person. So they had to build a website. They had a choice of doing it on Google Sites or on Wix. And they used both. I think in both cases they turned out well. And I think they turned out really well. Here's the list of the issues that they covered. And I'm just going to show you a couple of examples. Let's see. This topic was on Christian terrorism. We were looking at, we did do some research on suicide bombers who were mostly not Christians, and I really wanted to have the students explore the topic of Christian terrorism, so to get beyond the stereotype that all Muslims are terrorists, or which a lot of them actually came into the class thinking. Okay, so let's see. Do I have to do something? I'm also a Mac person, so on my computer I just clicked on this. Okay. Oops. I just did this in my office and it was fine, so I'm not sure. Maybe I have to wait. There we go. All right, so this was a project that students did on Wix. So they were responsible for dividing up the work. They really had to work together quite a bit. They had to divide up the work. Some of the groups did completely online communication. They didn't all meet in real time. So they had to decide how they were going to meet, how they were going to divide up the work. Some of them picked a couple of students to do the tech part, and other people did the content. And so I'll just quickly show you this. So down here at the bottom. So they had some requirements in terms of text, and then they had some criteria that they were supposed to use. And the other thing that we decided to do to also help to increase student engagement was they had to rank and evaluate each other's websites and then vote on which ones were the best ones. This was one of the top vote getters. But I think that process of having to evaluate each other's projects also really helped with them feeling like they were part of the community and part of the class. So I'll just show you one other one and I'll be done. Let's see. How do I go? Oh, it just goes through this one. And I had about 5 or 6 students in each group. Here's one. I'll just show you this one. It's on Google Sites. You can see the format is a little bit different, but okay. So they have their kind of table of contents on the left, and then you kind of scroll down, so it's a little more traditional. I think the Wix site is a bit more flexible. But you can get a sense of what the students did with this. I think they turned out really nicely. Daniel and I were both really happy with the ones in our classes. These are, I mean, they were all, they had a hard time ranking them because they were all good. All right, so I will stop there and just say again, thanks to TLP, thanks to CELT, it was really great to have the opportunity to have Academy e-Learning.
Thank you. I'm hoping you have time, a few more minutes for Jake to talk about his course as well. Thank you, Sarah.
You have a few more minutes? Fine. I'll make it quick because I got to go last. I would like to say that TLP did offer me a small sum to support them. We couldn't come to an agreement in part because everyone else did it for free. So I won't be saying anything nice about TLP. Just kidding. So I came into this. My name is Jake Brimlow. I teach in the College of Agriculture and Agricultural Business. I redesigned the Ag Business 390 World Food and Hunger course with my colleague Baoui Song. Song has been teaching the course for some years, and I was coming into it kind of as an also-ran and potentially future instructor. As it turns out, that's this semester, so I am currently teaching the class for the first time. I think both of us kind of came into the academy hoping that we would be able to find a way to avoid the feeling that as class sizes grow and workloads increase that we're dealing with something besides second best solutions to this problem, and that hopefully there would be something that we could get out of this that would be more positive than that. And I'm happy to say that I found quite a bit of that. In part, we're all trying to balance a lot of things, but I think that with the tools that I learned in the academy, I'm finding ways to do better work more quickly, and I think that that's really valuable stuff these days. So some of the characteristics of our course, being a World Food and Hunger course, we have a lot of opportunity to use rich media, and so we figured there would probably be some opportunities there for when and how we deliver that. As I'm learning this semester, one of the big things in working with rich media is that it seems to me that the currency of the information is far more relevant, because an old video looks really old and feels really old, and the information somehow feels even more outdated than an old piece of text. And that, coupled with the challenge of actually finding good balanced material, has made that harder than I anticipated. So we weren't, I guess it's obvious at this point that I didn't just adopt Dr. Song's course. As most of you who teach classes know, you do like to design some of your own content. And so we're working with the same shell, but I've been trying to deal with some new content. We did a major Blackboard redesign, and we did sort of a replacement model where some of the Thursdays, it's a Tuesday, Thursday class, and some of the Thursdays we don't come in. I think some of the most valuable parts of our redesign are that we are able to shift, especially video delivery, things like that, out of the classroom to save, not only to save me time, I can skip a class day if I want to and have a big long video and an assignment, but also we can then instead also come and just do the discussion in class. And so for me, it's been a lot about how to bring the critical thinking, how to bring the synthesis into class and get the other stuff out of class. So if all I'm going to do is deliver content during class time, what I learned at Academy e-Learning is that I can find ways to do things that are actually way more fun than delivering content during class time. So lectures are valuable. I have had the opportunity over the last couple semesters to teach in the experimental classroom in the library, and have learned from that experience that, and thank goodness I did Academy e-Learning before I tried that, that the classroom space is as important to my instruction as Blackboard is, as anything is. I mean, it's been a real mind bender, and quite frankly, I'm barely half cooked, it seems like, in all of this. I've got a long way to go, but what happened with Academy e-Learning is that I realized, I discovered a huge reservoir of resources and ideas, far too many to process in any lifetime of teaching, and allowed me to just start exploring, and I think that was the most valuable part for me. So with that, I guess we can go to questions.
If you'd like to ask questions of any of the speakers, that would be fine. I just pulled up our website, just in case you didn't know. Academy e-Learning has a website, and it's just the Chico State website /Academy. And there's more information there, as long as some information about each of the cohorts that have gone through the program. And if not, I'm sure everybody's burned out by the end of Friday, but thank you very much for being here. Question in the back?
How did you find the institutional support from your chair, your dean, and everyone above your department level for participating in the?
Oh, they thought it was great.
Very high, very.
Yeah, it was like
enthusiastic.
It's like, hey, we need a second person for this. Please do it. So
Very supportive.
And the iPads.
Oh, I did it just for the iPad?
Yeah.
It wasn't enough, but thankfully I got a lot more than just the iPad.
This may be a mundane question, but when you posted content on Blackboard Learn from text, did you have to pay a royalty fee to the textbook authors, or?
Well, we had permission from the textbook we use for 2D design. We could post a chapter or two at a time for a short amount of time. But we highly recommended that our students get the book, either the paper book or the electronic version that's available. And that would just depend on their pocketbooks and their own use of laptops and willingness or interest in using an e-text, or just being able to refer during a unit to the text appropriate.
Okay, because I feel a little bit like a dinosaur in that when I went to college, and probably when we all went to college, it was, it was like a page of notes you were taking. It was, I'm thinking more the brain learns by writing, and I'm just wondering with e-learning, when you see parts of your textbook chapters online or on your iPad, how are people are they writing notes, but they're writing notes by journaling? Is that right? Is that something?
Well, my students, because they're still meeting in a conventional format, they do take notes in class, if they come to class, of course. And the lecture notes are online too, though not all the content is on the slides. So it's up to them to do what they want to do. The journaling is more a way for them to process and think about what we've discussed in class. So it's not notes, it's more like their comments on what we've done. I give them a prompt, because otherwise they would like, well, what do we write? They're mostly freshmen and sophomores in that class, so they need a little help to get started.
Well, I'm really curious to know if there's some great research out there about how the brain learns in terms of reading and taking notes and printing it out and having it in a hard copy. So I typically ask my students to either print out the online reading or to bring it to class with an electronic device in case I want to refer to it in class. And many of them still feel more comfortable. I mean, it's not as environmentally friendly, but they still feel more comfortable printing it out. And of course, then it costs them a little bit more. But I mean, I think I've seen increasingly more students every semester bringing their iPad or phone or laptop to class with a reading on it. So it's a really good question.
There was a good piece of research somebody presented yesterday, our colleagues from Maritime, and they showed an interesting graphic. It was called the cone of learning, and I still have to follow up on the research and dig into it a little bit more, but it showed modes of learning or interaction or gaining of content and how much was retained. And so lecture being at the very tip, shallow 10% all the way down to actually doing something where it was more like 90%. So it's maybe relevant to that.
Interesting. Yeah, I would like to see that.
We better grab the mic from Hope before she breaks into song.
I have one question for Sarah. I like the idea that you ask students to vote for the best website. So I wonder how did you actually implement the voting? Is it mandatory?
It's mandatory. I mean, they get points. They get no points if they don't vote. So it is part of their grade. And then I make it very clear that the grade for the project is not based on the student voting. Although actually there was a pretty good correlation to the ones that I gave high grades to and the ones the students voted for. So I grade the projects. But the student voting, I still haven't figured out the best way to do this. I've talked with Anne a little bit about this. And I still haven't quite got the voting as streamlined as I would like. So I'm going to try again this semester to work on that. But basically they do get points, so they all have to, and pretty much all, there were a few, out of about 120 students, there were maybe 10 that didn't vote, but everybody, they got into it. It was fun. I had, like, I think it was, no, it wasn't the ones when I had chocolate Santa Claus. I had some candy that I gave as a prize, and we looked at the winners in class, and so it was a good, really good activity, I thought. I'll do it again.
Students actually, can they see who gave them what score, or is it anonymous?
No, I made it anonymous. That was part of what was so complicated about it, is trying to keep it anonymous so they could honestly write a sentence saying, they should have put more such and such, or I didn't really like the way they did it. So yeah, the voting was anonymous. The websites were not. They had all the authors' names listed.
It's not anonymous to use. You can still.
Right. I could still find out. That was the part that was so complicated to set up. I know there's got to be an easier way to do it. It was a lot of work for me to make it happen and record their. Yeah, it would have been easier to just not give them points for it, but then I'm afraid they wouldn't have done it. Or not. I wanted them all to participate, or as many as possible.
So is it set up in Blackboard Learn, or did you actually use Turnitin?
It was all set up in Blackboard Learn. I think I had it set up in the discussions. I can't remember now if it was where it was. I think it was in the discussions.
Thank you.
Sure.
Okay. Thank you all for coming, and thank you for attending the CELT conference, and I hope you enjoyed the session.